She'll pretend she feels nothing. She'll laugh at your pathetic attempts to get her attention. She'll post stories with another guy like she's saying, "See him? Yeah, that's who I'm into now." And you, poor thing, will think she turned to stone. Spoiler, she didn't. She's just too busy tap dancing on your self-esteem. But here comes the part you love to hear, right? That wet fantasy of emotional revenge. If you push the right buttons, she turns into a blender of feelings. Because listen, female desire, that big mystery you think you cracked after half a dozen YouTube videos, has no logic, no handbook, no on-off switch. It lives in the shadows, in silence, in that discomfort you call charm, but is really unresolved trauma wearing lipstick. You don't need to be handsome or rich. You just need to be the emotional earthquake that levels her stability. Romantic, huh? Practically a serial killer of affection. The point is to leave a scar, because emotional presence, according to the geniuses of manipulation, is built on impact. Like a car crash, you never forget. And this is where the gold of your little forbidden seduction cult kicks in. Triggers that never show up in any course, and shouldn't, because they're basically a guide to being a functional narcissist. With them, a total nobody becomes the ghost that haunts her thoughts. But easy, Tiger. Here comes the serious voice warning label. If you don't have cold blood, self-control, and emotional intelligence, you'll blow yourself up with her. How convenient. Oh, and before you get excited thinking you've become the Don Draper of emotional suburbia, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and comment gratitude like a good obedient follower. Because sure, manipulating women is fair game. But messing with YouTube's algorithm without permission? Unthinkable. Enough chit-chat. Pull your confidence out of the drawer and brace yourself. The slap in the face is just starting. Number 1. The big lie of conscious choice. You still think women choose who they desire like they're at a buffet? Today I'll take handsome with a side of respect. 2 texts a day and a cute dinner date to go. Adorable. All that's missing is a themed napkin. Here's a news flash that's going to sting worse than a fake compliment. Her desire does not care about the social checklist. What she says she wants is window display talk, the perfect product to take home to mom. What her body actually wants. Oh, buddy, that lives in the part of the brain she doesn't even know how to use. That's why you hear the classic desperate line. I don't even know what I see in him. He's not even my type. Exactly. That something she can't explain. It's a psychological slap that arrived unannounced. A stimulus that snuck in through the back door of her mind, cut the line past logic, and moved into her instincts. And here's the part your ego loves. If you can flip that pheromone mode with a minor in dark psychology before some other clown shows up with flowers and canned lines, congrats. You're not just a man. You're an emotional curse with a social security number. From there, who cares if the other guy is hotter, richer, more interesting? You slipped into the part of her mind she doesn't have a map for. And what does the emotional predator do with that? He vanishes, disappears, evaporates with the class of someone who knows desire is born from emptiness, not from good morning princess texts. While the tryhard sends flowers, the lethal one sends doubt. While the average man tries to please, the other installs confusion. And while she tries to process what's happening, she's already trapped in the maze you built with 3 lines, a sideways look, and a perfectly timed absence. Bottom line, one guy plays to be chosen, the other plays to be remembered. One begs for affection, the other plants addiction. Guess which one she can't get out of her head? Number 2, the mystery trigger. You still think she wants to understand you? That the secret to attraction is opening your heart like a messy closet and dumping it in her lap? Congrats, you've become a walking TED Talk, informative, educational, and zero desirable. She doesn't desire what she understands. She desires what scrambles her operating system. And guess what? Mystery is the perfect virus. The guy who serves everything on a platter becomes the emotional equivalent of a YouTube tutorial. Useful, sure, but boring. Predictable is comfy, but desire lives in discomfort. In what the hell does this guy want? In why did he disappear after that look? Her mind starts frying. It goes full emotional CSI. She dissects each text like it's NASA code. She replays your silences like clues in a crime scene. The brain hates gaps, and you've become a walking hole of intentions. The cruel part? She starts building a puzzle where the pieces don't even exist. She fills the blanks with fantasy, projection, the you that only lives in her head. And the less you explain, the more room she has to invent. One enigmatic smile. She writes a series, a cool, flat reply, new episode, a calculated vanishing act, season finale with a cliffhanger. And then when she catches herself thinking of you for no reason, dreaming up conversations that never happened, trying to decode what you actually feel, spoiler, even you don't know, that's where the dirty game begins. Your silence turns into a drug, your indifference, an aphrodisiac, your emotional absence, a black hole of longing. And her? She orbits around a carefully engineered void. You didn't become better. You became a beautifully packaged question mark. And in her head, that's stronger than any good morning, beautiful. Addiction doesn't grow from abundance. Addiction grows from lack. The less she has of you, the more she needs you. Simple, sordid, effective. Number 3, the scarcity trigger. Want to be craved like dessert on a diet? Then disappear. That's it. Everything easy loses value like a bargain bin self-help caption on Instagram. Everything predictable turns into an emotional rag. And whatever's always there, on demand, turns into wallpaper. It's there, but nobody notices. A woman doesn't crave what she has. She craves what's missing, what slips away, what almost happened. That's why the man who understands scarcity turns absence into addiction. He doesn't reply right away because he's not DoorDash for feelings. He's not constantly available because rare things shine brighter. He doesn't chase because people with value don't beg for attention. The magic happens the moment she gets comfortable and you strategically vanish. Poof. Emotional Houdini. And it's in that silence that she screams on the inside. Because what hurts isn't the no. It's the, where the hell did he go? It's the broken script. The vacuum where expectation used to sit. Then come the questions. Did he lose interest? Did I mess something up? Is he with someone else? Congrats, you've become the riddle she can't drop. The mind hates open loops. Anxiety is the most efficient Cupid there is. While the weak man thinks checking in daily proves love, the lethal man knows. Constant presence is emotional anesthesia. You become the guy she's sure of, and certainty is where desire goes to die. Desire lives in doubt, in the void, in the itch of not knowing if you'll come back, if you still feel, if you still want. The scarce man isn't cold by accident, he's surgical. He shows up with intensity and disappears with precision. He doesn't want to be company. He wants to be a memory. He serves crumbs that taste like a feast. Because he learned that the win is in being remembered, not being available. And when she starts missing something she never fully had, when almost turns into obsession, game over. You didn't win by being there. You won by not being there perfectly. Number 4, the selective disdain trigger. Everybody claps for beauty, curves, and a rehearsed smile. Congrats, you just applauded the obvious. Like a kid dazzled by a magic trick she's seen 1,000 times. And the worst part? You still think you're original. Most men are a chorus of copy-paste validation. So gorgeous. My dream. I'd marry you yesterday. An army of needy flatterers licking the floor she walks on, hoping for a crumb of attention. Result? 0. Emotional impact? None. She knows the script. Knows what to post, how to tilt her head, which caption to use to harvest that predictable like fest. Then you show up and ignore it. She posts a thirst trap and you don't even like it. She throws bait and you don't bite. She fires the weapons that always worked, and they jam. System crash. Because selective disdain hits harder than any simping compliment. It says, "What impresses the weak doesn't impress me." You aim past the makeup. You praise what she hides, her restraint, her scarce silence, her sharp mind. Things she never hears, because average men only have eyes for the window display, never the stock room. That's when you disarm her. You don't want the body everyone wants. You poke the ego she tries to protect. While others chase the packaging, you open the source code of identity. And the game flips. She stops feeling in control. She starts thinking about you, wondering why you didn't fall, trying desperately to get back the power she just lost. Selective disdain creates scarcity where abundance used to rule, and her ego used to owning the room like a hall of mirrors goes into crisis. Because for the first time, someone she wanted to impress doesn't care. What does that produce? Addiction. She starts playing a game she never trained for, having to conquer. And that's when you take control. Not because you yelled, because you stayed quiet at the perfect moment. Before you keep being her emotional lapdog, wake up. Tired of being the bench warmer, the premium listener, the sweet guy she respects like a brother? Congrats on your VIP doormat membership. Today is the day you burn it. There's an ebook in the description that'll teach you how to stop being a mop with jello for a spine. Want respect? Want to become the man she's afraid to lose? Learn to be the challenge she can't control, or keep being the rug she wipes her feet on before going out with someone else. Your move, flip the board, or keep losing to the credits. Number 5, the emotional instability trigger. You still think women fall in love with peace, with calm, with the predictable good morning, beautiful at 7:30 sharp? Cute. Keep dreaming. While you try to be the safe harbor, she's fantasizing about the hurricane that spun her brain and then ghosted. Real desire isn't born in a cuddle. It's born on the tightrope, in conflict, in the "I don't know where I stand." The female mind doesn't attach to stability. It clings to emotional chaos. It's adrenaline she wants. That drop in the stomach no head pat can deliver. Enter the master of instability. The man who's sunshine one day and a blizzard the next, who mixes tenderness with absence, interest with silence, passion with surgical neglect, that hacks her reward system like an emotional slot machine, never knowing what comes next. That's what addicts her. She starts hunting for patterns, reading your gestures, replaying conversations like riddles. The more she tries to understand, the less she can. Because you don't serve logic, you serve tension, and tension is the most potent emotional drug there is. One day she feels she's got you. The next, she's sure she lost you. That push-pull forms a dependency loop. She's not with you because of love. She's with you because she needs to solve you. You became an impossible equation, and her ego refuses to leave puzzles unsolved. The cruel part. The more she searches for answers, the more you become the center of her emotional reality. Because when used with surgical precision, instability turns any maybe into silent obsession. But careful, puppet master. This is not a license to be rude. It's not about being a jerk. It's about contrast. It's an art. You offer warmth, then withdraw. You give a sincere compliment, then watch in silence. You heat her up, and then you chill. Not out of malice. For impact. You dismantle the emotional safety net she built with all the good guys. You pull the floor out, and it's in her panic for stability that addiction is born. When she doesn't know if she's winning or losing, she won't leave the game, because now you're not just the man, you're the board. And guess who writes the rules? You do. Number 6, the dominant gaze trigger. Some people talk a lot and say nothing. Then there's the gaze. That silent missile that, in weak hands, turns into a needy wink. But in the hands of someone who knows what he's doing, it's a verdict, a scanner, pure control. A dominant gaze doesn't try to please, doesn't ask permission, doesn't seek approval. It just enters. It cuts through the makeup, the rehearsed smile, the window shop flirt. It goes straight for what she hides from everyone, including herself. And she feels it. Like an internal alarm. Something's different here. Because this gaze isn't from a man who wants something. It's from a man who's seen everything and stays cold anyway. You look at her without anxiety, without hunger, without that desperate sparkle of please notice me. You're not begging. You're assessing. And that rattles her more than 1,000 polished lines. While other men stare with freshman-level lust, you look with grandmaster composure. She feels red, not buttered up. Seen, not drooled over. That's scary. No one wants to be decoded, least of all by someone who doesn't flinch. The dominant gaze isn't sexual. It's surgical. It doesn't invite. It examines. It says, I see you. And that breaks any little charm game, because she realizes you're not playing her game. You're studying the board from outside, calm, already knowing the end. That's where desire is born, not from touch, but from the feeling of being emotionally naked, of standing in front of someone who doesn't buy the performance, who doesn't fall for the tricks, who sees and stays silent. Silence that lingers while she smiles, teases, tests, is the gaze that sticks. Not because it's loud, but because it's sure. The certainty of a man who doesn't chase. The certainty of a man who won't be manipulated. The certainty of a man who isn't there to win her over. He's there to leave a mark. And when she feels that, when she realizes her gaze lost its power and yours took control, the game ends. Now the one begging for attention is her. Number 7, the rare presence. Plus, heavy silence trigger. You still think constant presence builds attachment? That texting goodnight every day sparks fascination? That being always available equals value? Congrats, you're the emotional version of a flyer guy on a street corner. You pop up all the time and nobody reads you anymore. Female desire doesn't grow from frequency. It grows from intensity. And intensity isn't in a good morning with a coffee emoji. It's in the silent impact of someone who appears like an eclipse and leaves a shadow in memory. A man who gets this doesn't need to talk much or explain anything. He walks into a room with a calm that bothers people, with a posture that shouts without making a sound. He watches, he reads, he says little. And when he does, the room shuts up. Because he carries the rarest kind of power, silence that weighs. That silence turns into mental torture. She's socially trained to scan nuances, hunt for signals, assemble emotional puzzles, finds herself facing a wall where nothing is obvious, nothing is given, nothing is spoon-fed. She doesn't understand, and precisely because she doesn't, she can't stop thinking. You say little, and she studies every word. You show up rarely, and she replays every second. You give no explanations, and she spends days generating theories. Because what's rare becomes a diamond. What's scarce becomes addictive. You weren't present. You were unforgettable. You didn't offer yourself. You made yourself felt. That's the opposite of what 99% of men do, beg for attention with too much presence. You create value with strategic absence. A woman doesn't crave what she has. She craves what she almost had, what brushed past and didn't stay, what showed up and held back. You become that, the fragment, the question, the incomplete presence that haunts her like a sentence cut off mid-line. She replays talks, rereads messages, reinterprets silences. Not because you were clear, but because you were indecipherable. That kind of desire isn't love. It's the need to close a loop you never even started. That's the trick. Be remembered not because you were always there, but because you showed up at the exact moment and left before the end, like every well-built addiction. Number 8. The no full access trigger. Nothing hooks harder than what's right there, but never whole. The classic mistake of men starving for approval is thinking winning a woman means opening the vault and dumping everything in her lap. Feelings, backstory, trauma, real-time location, and as a bonus, your Instagram login. Result: you become that book everyone skims at the bookstore and never buys. When everything is exposed, nothing is desired. Mystery drowns in transparency. Fascination gets buried alongside your dignity. The man who understands the game moves differently. He reveals in doses. He shows one side and locks the rest. He lets her feel a little, taste a sample, touch the surface, and suddenly she hits a wall. Invisible, subtle, irritating, unexplainable. Right there, that's where desire is born. Now she needs to understand, needs to reach the side no one's seen, needs to crack that wall that doesn't fall for flattery, charm, sex, drama, or emotional blackmail. She kisses you, sleeps with you, laughs with you, and still senses she hasn't had you. That eats her alive. Desire doesn't come from possession. It comes from lack of control, from the ache of being close, and still far from having touched, but not arrived. The man who crafts that becomes a locked maze. He's not an open book. He's encrypted code, a foreign language, a riddle she insists on solving because she hates not understanding. The more she tries, the more she wants. Mystery feeds imagination. Imagination fuels addiction. Want to be remembered? Stop giving yourself away like a free sample at a pharmacy. Be the challenge she can't beat. Be the silence in the middle of the sentence, the period where she wanted a comma. She'll come back, not because she loves you, but because she needs to decode you. Number 9, the subtle risk trigger. Want to kill female desire faster than a corny, "Hey stranger" text? Absolute safety. That cozy, linear, needy, tidy energy that feels like an Excel class scented with lavender. Great for building a home, sure. For setting sheets on fire and living rent-free in her head? Not even with a prayer. Real desire, the kind that burns, consumes, spins her mind at 3 a.m., comes from the tension between he wants me and he could be gone any second. Enter the lethal man, not the 2-bit jerk who confuses risk with rudeness. The master of controlled chaos. The man who carries in his gaze and posture a quiet threat. I can leave, and you won't get a heads up. He doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. He just exists with a presence that unsettles, with an energy that's never 100% available. A smile that still hums with a ready goodbye. That shakes her. Women bond with what they might lose. When she senses you've got 1,000 exits, 1,000 options, 1,000 paths, she weighs every word. She thinks twice before pushing, because unlike the simps she controls with an emoji, you slip, you suggest without saying, you impose without asking. That aura of, I'm not all the way here and tomorrow maybe even less, trips her nervous system. The brain goes on alert. Alert mixed with attraction turns into what? Exactly. Addiction. You're the risk she shouldn't take. And takes anyway. The danger she pretends not to see. But feels. The man she wants to cage, with nothing to grab onto, that keeps her stuck, not to you, to the game. One day you're heat, the next a wall of ice. And she, torn between anger and lust, keeps trying to make sense of you. She keeps coming back, because deep down, You became the emotional battlefield where she feels alive. Risk, when calculated, is an aphrodisiac. You don't threaten, you imply. You don't storm off, you vanish gracefully. And that puts her in a quiet panic. You are the most addictive maybe she's ever met. That's why she wants you, even knowing she might get burned. Number 10, the total indifference trigger. You want to crush the female ego with surgical precision? It's not no, not being turned down, not being blocked. The worst punishment of all is nothing. The absolute absence of reaction. That glacial indifference that says without a word, you have zero power here. When a woman decides to seduce, she shows up assuming she's already won. She expects impact, a hungry stare, immediate validation. When it doesn't come, something breaks. She doesn't get it. She doesn't accept it. She refuses to settle. So she escalates. She gets subtle. She pushes every button that worked on 99% of men. And with you? Silence, coolness, absence with presence. Showtime. She stops desiring you and starts fighting the idea that she lost control. Her ego, used to being a mirror for male applause, looks at you and finds nothing, no reflection, no reaction, no sign she still has the effect she always had. That nothing becomes an echo, a mental hum, a quiet torment. Her mind can handle explicit rejection. Fight, long text, breakup, done. What never had closure stays open, like an itch, like a door left on a chain. You don't deny, you don't validate, you simply don't exist emotionally without leaving. You're the stone statue in the middle of her chaos. And that impenetrable presence is what traps her. Total indifference is cruel because it flips the game. It's no longer about having you. It's about regaining her own sense of power. About prying a reaction out of you like a sip of water in a desert. The more she tries, the more you own the stage. She contorts herself to make you feel anything. You, unmoved, watch the ego melt. No speech, no twitch. At that point, you're not even a man. You're a mirror that refuses to reflect. And when she needs your attention to feel alive, congratulations, you won. Number 11, the difference between lust and love. The biggest mistake of the romantic man read, predictable, cute, affection-hungry, is thinking love and desire grow from the same root. That if he's gentle, present, understanding, with long morning paragraphs, eventually she'll want him the way she wants the guy who treated her like a smoke break between priorities. Wake up. Love is construction. Lust is chaos. Love is predictability, routine, dinner with the in-laws, and Netflix with popcorn. Lust is doubt, tension, instability, with a hint of emotional danger. A woman can love the man who offers stability, and spend nights fantasizing about the one who made her cry in the car and then vanished. Her body doesn't crave the man who protects her. Her body craves the man who yanked the floor out and walked away like nothing happened. Real female desire, the kind that steals sleep, spikes the heart, and locks up logic, doesn't sprout from affection. It grows from discomfort. From what she doesn't understand, from what she can't control, from what she swears she hates, but stalks at 2 a.m. That's why so many great catches become footnotes in her story, while the emotional idiot who disappeared after getting her hooked becomes a legend. She loves peace, but she desires war. She loves the safe embrace, but she dreams of the psychological slap. She loves the stable man, but she clings to the unpredictable. The more you try to win her with logic, kindness, emotional coherence, the faster you slide into the category of nice guys she respects but doesn't want. What sticks isn't tenderness. It's the invisible scar left by someone who never promised anything, yet got imprinted anyway. You can be Instagram Prince Charming, the one she brings home to mom, the example, the right choice, and still lose in her fantasy to that emotional nightmare with a first and last name. Desire doesn't care about ethics. It doesn't care about coherence. It cares about instinct, craving, a memory of pain disguised as attraction. The man who understands that doesn't need her love. He just needs to be the name that returns every time she tries to forget. Number 12, how to use it coldly without being a coward. Real coldness isn't sulking and posting vague quotes on Instagram. That's high school drama. If you need to prove you're cold, congrats, you've already lost. The truly lethal man doesn't need applause, much less female recognition to feel valid. He's the stage, not the needy performer. Here's the line that separates the strategist from the pathetic manipulator. The emotional coward uses triggers to play games, puff his ego, make a scene. The cold man, he uses them to select. He doesn't want to impress. He doesn't want to beat her game. He builds his own and has the calm to walk off the board without announcing it. No theatrics, no blocking sprees, no goodbye manifesto. He simply exits. He doesn't play out of need. He plays by criteria. He's not dazzled by beauty, attention, or shelf brand charm. He observes. He tests. If it doesn't fit, he cuts. No guilt. No ceremony. Real coldness isn't revenge in disguise. It's elegant self-preservation. The man who masters this knows exactly when to appear and when to disappear. When he leaves, he creates a vacuum no one else can fill. Because what he offers isn't common. It's selective, rare, conditional. He doesn't beg for attention. He doesn't bargain with his silence. He doesn't react to childish provocation. He sparks desire and steps off stage, leaving the chaos running. His power isn't in contact, it's in absence. He doesn't need her to love him. He needs her to remember. Remember when she's with someone else. Remember when the world goes quiet. Remember without knowing why. Because his name became a ghost in her mind. That isn't earned with volume. It's earned with coldness, with silence, with the emotional control of a man who doesn't chase because he's already ahead. Brutal conclusion. Now you get it. She doesn't need to like you, or clap, or get you, or sign off. Her desire doesn't read labels. It doesn't follow logic. It doesn't respect ethics. Desire isn't a well-behaved lady. It's a primitive instinct in high heels. You can keep trying to be the man she approves of, the one she posts, the one she presents. Good luck with that. Just don't whine when she sleeps with you and dreams about someone else. Or, if you dare, you can be the name she avoids saying out loud, but feels in her body every time the silence tightens. The name she denies in conversation and relives alone in the dark, out of control. Because the game was never about affection, it was about impact. Mark the mind and you own the body. Plant out and you harvest addiction. An emotional brand doesn't wash off with friendly advice, not with therapy, not with a perfect guy who does everything right. She doesn't crave the peace she has. She craves the abyss she lost. You don't need to be there. You don't need to post. You don't need to speak. You just need to leave the right trail. The calculated absence. The silence that screams louder than any declaration. Because right when she thinks she's over you, you return, not in touch, in memory. And memory is the slowest, deadliest poison there is. She might move on, might even get married, might try to forget. But when her head hits the pillow, it'll be your silence that echoes.